Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain, co-host here with Joe Daniel as always.
Hey, what's up, Coach?
Well, it's Christmas is done. We
Yep.
have way more toys in the house now, and I have ordered all of the coaching books that I could possibly buy. So thank you guys that write books, and life is good. Happy holidays.
I did not get any coaching books. I don't know that I got any coaching stuff.
It's a shame.
It's.
I think. I don't know. When you make your own, like, do you want other people's?
I mean, like I look at other people's stuff. I mean, obviously, like I have other people's stuff, and I've gotten rid of a lot more than what you see back there. Not that they're all coaching books, but probably half of them are. But I, um, I know what I want.
Yeah.
And I'm just not, if I want something, I can figure out who I want to talk to and who I want to learn it from. And I get enough. I didn't last year, but in general, I get enough from clinics to find out other ideas. If I go to a clinic, I can go watch somebody and get some other ideas because I'm not looking for the entire, the Denny Crean wing tee from A to Z. Like that is legitimately and there's a volume 2 for some reason. Everything's in volume 1. Volume 2 is more of the implementation, the drills, practice planning. There's a couple of things like the Jet series that are put in there, but the meat and potatoes of if you want to learn the system but not really install it is in that book. There's not much I'm looking for that of right now. So clinic talks and then kind of kicking around online gets me the idea. A lot of times I'm just looking for an idea, or I'm looking for something specific that one of my clients has brought up and, hey, how do we stop this? Or how can we implement this? How can we use this? And I'll go and seek that out specifically. And when I do that, it's specific, and I usually just find somebody I can talk to about it.
Right. Yeah, I've definitely gotten to that point where it's obviously I have all of your stuff, and I've committed as much of it to memory as I can, with minimum installs, because until you start teaching it to kids, I don't feel like you ever have anything down pat.
No.
So with, I guess, 3 installs of something Joe Daniel related, and now I've started on the offensive side, so trying to get your stuff down there, and then I just started like nitpicking other people's stuff, not nitpicking, cherry picking. That's what I'm trying to say. Just
Right.
what do I want to learn? How do I like to run? Quarters or whatever it is. So that's kind of how I've started adding this year. Some leadership stuff, a lot of leadership development.
Yes.
I had to go out and finally get hard copies of Jocko Willink's books, the Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership, because they help in multiple worlds for me. So on the development of soldiers and then development of players. And it's good to, those books they go in tandem so well to teach you everything's your fault. And then like, okay, not everything, but how do you know the difference? So I did just a lot of, developing my culture, I guess, before I even have a team, which I don't know if that really makes you any better of an, of an asset later, but
I had a coach who just joined, and he was talking about, we do our kickoff registration. When you sign up for JDFB, you do a little registration and tells me about your program, and then I send a video response, and it can be 5 minutes, sometimes longer, depending. This one was definitely on the longer end because he was in a situation where he's, the head coach has resigned, the team was struggling. It's one of those situations where he's staying because that's his job. He's as an assistant applying for the head job, but if someone else gets it, I get the impression that he will also be staying in that situation too. So he doesn't know, not should I be, but kind of learning to prepare in his old role as an assistant, and also learning to prepare in the new role, potentially as the head coach. And that was my basic response, was compartmentalize it. Like, here are the things you're working on for what is happening now, your current role, or what may happen, in the future, in a role. And then here is the ultimate end game, which is I get the head coaching job. I have because, and at, in his situation, I was in the exact same situation in that I was on this. The only difference was I didn't have to stay because I don't teach. But the head coach left, and I was applying, from staff, and so there was one other coach on staff who was applying, and I would have stuck around to help him. I think so, but the situation that I brought up was the school that I was at. Even though they hired from within, they drug their feet so bad it was May, and you're in a place. They haven't won a lot of football games. You're in a place that football's not a priority, clearly. So if football is a priority, then there'd be more coaches trying to get that job. The thing is, if you're applying for that head job, and this goes for anybody, and we've been talking a lot in the last few episodes about getting head coaching jobs and applying for head coaching jobs and putting out your resume. If you are applying for a job, don't expect that hire to happen quickly.
Right.
There's a lot, and every school is different, and what they, how long their first interview round, second interview round, final interviews, whatever they do, then how long does it take them to make the decision? Are they going to hire somebody who says, nah, I'm good? They go through the process. They might go through the whole process with that person. We had a coach. I work with this coach now. He got the job eventually. A coach got hired at a school. Everyone in Richmond knows this story. It's not secret. A coach got hired at this school. I can't remember if the situation was his wife had cheated on him, something like that. Anyway, security camera footage comes out on the news very shortly after the hire, that he has knocked somebody out in a hallway of a motel. And I don't remember the circumstances of that, but he did not get the hire.
Right.
And so my friend gets the hire months after he applied, I think. And it was late. You don't know. And so when you're thinking about this stuff right now and you're applying for head coaching jobs, you've got to have it, because there may not be hey, you're hired. You've got spring training. Like, it might be June. You've got to have all this stuff together. You've got to know, man, I'm going to lay out my priorities pyramid, and I got to get this in. And we're going to do our squad, all this stuff. We got our X's and O's. I ain't waiting to find out what you run. Like, sorry, bro, we run a 4-2-5. You're going to run that unless if you're waiting on something, who the coordinators and coaches that are available there are. You may know, like, I trust this guy. But if you don't have that, like, you're coming into a bunch of guys you don't know. It's like, look, bro, I got hired in May. I don't have time to find out if you know what you're doing, and then sink or swim. This is my life on the line here. Head high school coach. Everything is about the head high school coach. Nobody fires the assistants. Head high school coach. The college coaches will never understand this, right? College coaches, things go bad. What do? We'll fire the strength coordinator. Coach. Start with the strength coach. It's always the strength coach. We don't get that. One guy gets fired. So, bro, I got my 4-2-5 package ready. I got my pistol power offense package ready. I don't know what you guys are going to do and who's going to call what, but I know what you're going to be calling, because that's where we're at right now. Yeah. Here, day one install starts tomorrow. I don't know. So you've got to have all of that. Everybody that is applying for head jobs right now that thinks you might accept one, you've got to have all of that ready. Leadership, X's and O's, drills, everything. I had this idea the other day. We talked about everybody needs a title. You need a title, by the way. I got to get you a title. Co-host is your current title, but I think you need an athletic speed and movement title. You have a podcast title. Everybody needs a title. I started looking at, like, everybody needs a title. Like, somebody on staff should be the drill coordinator.
Yeah.
And, like, your job, it sounds very military, doesn't it?
It does.
Your job should be, like, knowing what drills every position is doing and reviewing whether those drills are working. like somebody should just be, in theory, that should be the coordinator, right? He should be, in theory, the offensive coordinator should know what drills are being run in each position. But like, what if somebody just had the drill? That would be more valuable than assistant head coach. Like, this guy's job is to check in on the drills that you are running and see, collect video of them, see if they're working, see if they're translating to the field. That's what I think. But anyway,
So,
you need to be ready.
Yeah, what we're going to talk about tonight is development of your coaches. So if it's whether you're a coordinator or a head coach, you'll find this probably pretty useful. But it does kind of tie into with that coach's situation, because I have to go from, okay, I've got a drill book that's made and I need to get my linebackers ready, to I've got to get coaches developed. And right. So, I mean, that is a lot to prepare.
Right.
And if you intend to be a head coach, like I started that last year when I was like, okay, at some point, I understand now that the coaching pool is not that deep.
Yes.
At year 3, 4, 5, I know that some schools. I applied to a school this year, and I haven't heard anything on interviews yet. But I think they had like a 5-year stipulation, and I just explained, like, look, I'm not in my 5th year yet. I will be if you hire me as your head coach. That'll be my 5th year. So,
and it's always interesting how they handle that too, because they may put that on there and then nobody applies.
Right.
And they're like, well, we count military service as a half year of coaching,
Right. Ta-da! You win.
So boom, 5 years. Like, there we go. So you can get creative.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully that if you even intend to ever be a head coach, you already have that. Your Google Docs or your Google, whatever they call that thing, Drive. Has got all that in it. You would assume, but that's a pretty sticky situation to be in, because now, I know this from the military side and coaching. Once you prepare that and you have a plan, it's hard to not use your plan, because
you're right.
Especially if you start seeing things falter, or like kids aren't coming to practice, whatever it is, right?
Sure.
And then now all of a sudden you're like, this kind of sucks, and I have a better plan.
I have a plan for this, right?
But anyway,
and that's true of anybody who's been a head coach. Anybody who's been a head coach and then gone to being an assistant again, is you can't help but say, and every head coach says this, every former head coach is going to say this, back in 2015 when I was at such and such, we did this. And What they mean is, this is what I would be doing if I was the head coach right now, because it worked before.
Absolutely.
And that's an opportunity for you as the current head coach to delegate and say, great, go do it. Run with it. Implement it.
Coordinator.
You are the whatever that was, coordinator. Go. I mean, everybody should be coordinating something. I was, offensive line run game coordinator, offensive line run game footwork coordinator.
We'll have to do a true like leadership breakdown or something someday episode, and just help young coaches know how to do that. How do you give a coordinator title to everyone? How do you essentially walk in and you're just the guy making a few decisions and let them operate? Because I know we kind of did that in our plan of communication episode, right? Having an SOP and letting people know, but
right. So that's what it comes down to. And it's very, very difficult, very, very, very difficult for coaches at this level to give that up. When you are at the Division I level, you look back on what Bobby Bowden was doing in his last few years at Florida State, where the joke used to be that, Bobby Bowden was the trick play coordinator. And that was, if Bobby was on the interview, because they'd interview Bobby in the middle of a game back when that wasn't normal. And he'd just be talking to him, and you knew there weren't going to be a trick play because Bobby was on an interview. Now he comes back and he's frustrated because he didn't get to call his trick play. There might be an immediate trick play.
Right.
But he had the ability to go out and hire top level assistants. And, when your offensive coordinator is Mark Richt, you're not like, is this, I better get in there and get involved. It's like, no, you better just get out of the way.
Right.
Like, you just stay out of the way. You have no business being involved here. And so, that's the Mark Richt's the one that pops into my mind. I know that he has tons and tons of assistant coaches, but that's a guy who's easy to give things up. And it's harder for us when all right, here I am. I've been coaching for 20 years. Here comes Daniel Chamberlain. He's been coaching for 3 years. And I'm like, here's the defense. Go have a good time.
Right.
Like, that's a little bit harder proposition.
Yeah. Yeah. The hands off versus micromanage is
Right.
read the dichotomy of leadership. There you go. It'll tell you
Yeah.
how to find the middle ground.
Yeah. And that's where you've got to have all the checks and balances in place, because you aren't going to give it all up.
Right. Yeah. If you want to pay the bills here, sir, then we will jump into our questions.
Go check out.
Don't know which one this time.
I don't even know where to go, but go to joedanielfootball.com. We got something free for you that you're going to check out, but also you can check out JDFB Premium Coaching Systems and get access there for $1 to get started for $1 right now as of this recording. I would say in 2 weeks when it comes out, that'll still be available. Get access to 5 complete coaching systems: 4-2-5, 33 stack, 3-4, 4-3, and the pistol power offense system. We got a lot coming for you in 2024. We're going to be having our Q&As coming back here in January. May have already had our first one as of when this goes out. But we will be having Q&As. We'll be having master classes. We will be opening up the film room. We've been fortunate that so many of our coaches have been sending in film through the game film analysis plan. And we're going to be sharing a lot of that film with you, breaking down ways to defend and attack and run and whatever else, seeing it live on game film. So we're doing more and more of that. So that is coming up in 2024. Check it out at joedanielfootball.com.
Awesome. Also want to mention adaptable physical therapy. You guys have probably heard it by now. Dr. Samantha Chamberlain's my wife. She's the one operating that thing. I'm just the one that gets to market it, I guess. If you're in our area, Northeast Oklahoma, Northwest Arkansas specifically, but anywhere in this 4-state area, and you have any issues, whether it's for athletes, for yourself, for your parents, your grandparents, she can help everyone. She has been getting some crazy reviews lately of people who for 20 years have been in pain and have tried everything, and they go see her and fixed. So I don't know what she does. She touches people and heals them. She's amazing. It's part of that PT 2.0, though. She's going to really load you up and make you work. Her big motto is if you're going in for therapy and it's not harder than everyday life, then you're not getting therapy. You're just passing money to another human. So go see her there in Grove, Oklahoma. Also want to mention Athletic Speed and Movement. It is January the 4th, I believe, when this comes out. So hopefully you guys got in before actually, it may even be the week after that, huh? I think we might be 2 weeks ahead now. So this might be the 11th.
Yeah, it should be the 11th. Yeah.
Hopefully we saw you guys at AFCA if you were in there. If not, hit us up. But Athletic Speed Movement, we've got Del Basquet's system. Del Basquet being, he was called the God of Speed for a while, right? Like that was the guy's title.
Godfather, let's not.
Oh, that's right. Godfather.
Yeah.
He hates the word guru, and somehow fell for Godfather. So that's good, I guess. But the dude has got it. He's got it going on. 45 plus years. He's been teaching everyone from NFL players to high school freshmen how to run the correct way, how to move fast. Watch some videos online this weekend on Twitter of NFL wide receivers not having to like pound their feet in the dirt to make a cut, right? You move your foot, it moves your hip, it moves your chest, away you go. Dell's been teaching that for 45 years. People are finding it and it's like magic to them. And he's doing it with every position. Wait until it's your offensive lineman who no longer has to decelerate before turning up for a linebacker, right? Like you can help every person on the field. If you go over to athleticspeedmovement.com, you can sign in there, hit the big orange button that says something like get the keys to speed. Press the button, give us your email, watch the video. Let's get to work. Let's get your guys faster in 2024. Bills paid.
Let's go.
Question 1. So we're talking about developing our new coaches. And we're assuming once again that you're either a head coach or a coordinator. Otherwise, you're probably not developing coaches. They are. What should we be focused on with a new coach? Kind of what does that progression look like? If we had a 5-day install for coaches, what would it be?
Well, I'll argue one thing there is that a lot of our coaches are position coaches who are not being developed. So you can use this as a guide for your own personal development if you're a young or up-and-coming coach or position coach who is on a staff where, and this is not an insult to your coordinators or head coaches, because as I talked about, I created Football Coaching 101 because I failed at developing my young coaches. Right. And I created the Football Coaching 101 series to specifically make sure that I did not fail at that again. And the opposite, that I help a lot of other coaches develop. So with that said, what was the question?
What is that path? What's the path of progression for developing your new coaches? Where should we start, and what's our goal?
I blacked out for a second.
That's okay.
It took a long time to get home from Atlanta to Virginia last night, and it rained the entire way. So that's why my eyes are a little baggy and a little rough. I spent 2 days in bed. I got sick as soon as I got to Atlanta.
Perfect.
Got better Christmas Day, and then got back in the car. I broke down for my wife what my hours in Atlanta to my hours of driving.
It's not good, is it?
2 hours at my buddy's wife is from Marietta, where I'm from, and so I went over to her mom's house. Her mom actually worked with my dad. It's a really weird scenario, but I went over there for a couple hours. Then I got in bed. Then I stayed there for 2 days. Christmas Day, about 12 hours. Woke up the next day to leave, went and had lunch with my friends for about an hour and a half, got in the car and drove. About 19 hours of driving. The path for development for your coaches is essentially the very first thing that you must make sure of is that your coaches have the core, just like anything else. You've got to have a foundation. You've got to have fundamentals, philosophy. So the things that I want to develop in a coach first, you're not their friend. What's the relationship between you as an assistant coach or as a coach in general and a player? Now, a lot of us will be hiring coaches who are just out of college, or more and more we see kids not going to college. I don't think more and more kids not going to college, but I see more and more kids graduating and sticking around to help out on their, in some capacity. Maybe it's with the freshman team or whatever it is, but you've got to establish with them, you are no longer in the role that you were in. Happens a lot in college where a kid graduates, turns around, and now he's a graduate assistant. You are not in the role that you were in. That guy, that college guy, you got to tell him, and you got to tell that high school kid if that's the situation. You are not going to parties. You are not their friend. Now, you don't have to scream and yell at them, but you are not their friend. It's very much the parenting conversation. Your role as a parent, and I can speak to this because I'm a parenting expert. I've been doing it for 17 months, so I know more than most. Just like I'm a marriage expert. I've been married for 8 years, and I tell people all the time, I can tell you everything you need to know because I've mastered it. Don't listen to the guy who's been doing it for 40 years. Listen to me. I've been doing it for 8 or 17 months. But it's very much the same thing as like, right, as a parent, like your role is not to make them like you. Your role is to raise a fine, upstanding member of society who can function and be successful and all of these things. And so you've got to first establish with your coach, what is your role? What do you are a teacher. You are to develop these guys. I think that's where JDFB comes in. And our platinum coaches that are able to add unlimited coaches or up to 100 coaches, which is pretty much unlimited. I mean, you have more than 100 coaches, up to 100 coaches on individual logins, and you hand that to them and you say, go study this. You need to understand the Coach Simple philosophy. You need to understand that your job is to, first of all, we understand our role. I'm not your friend anymore. I can be your friend in certain situations, depending on age group and stuff, but I'm not your friend anymore. This also comes in when you hire the guy that's the local, been there forever, knows everybody. You can't treat that kid on the field like you've known him since he was 2. It's not the same relationship. You've got to be able to step across that line and be in a different role. So we have to establish that role. But, then we have to understand what our job is to do. And we have to understand that our job as a football coach, go ahead and forget. I talked about these in our New Year's resolutions, our new football season resolutions. Be a problem solver. Go ahead and forget about this kid's too small, this kid's too slow, or these kids, I guess I should say, Our players are too small. Our players are too slow. Our players don't have the football IQ. All of those things to me, when I hear coaches say them, especially in our kickoff registrations, and I tell them that's a red flag, and that's something that I hope you will change as you start to study the things that we have. When you get in JDFB, the first things you look at is the coach simple philosophy, and you understand none of that matters to you, because your job, very specifically, your job as a football coach is to develop confidence in your players, to make your players believe they can get the job done, and to solve problems that get in the way of that confidence. It's a very good way to look at it. Everything that you're doing is solving problems that get in the way of that confidence.
Right.
And so I've got to establish your job, and your job then, once you understand that, coaching, first of all, becomes a lot easier and a lot better, because you don't go and get frustrated. Now I still do. I mean, I've done this for a long time, but I at least can step back after a couple minutes and say, okay, I'm on the wrong track here. You understand that that kid isn't trying to piss you off, probably, that they want to do well, they want to win, and you've got to get them in this bandwidth of confidence where they believe in what they're doing, and they believe they can do it, and they know how to get the job done. And then gradually, using the levers principle and using ASCA, gradually extend that bandwidth a little bit higher and bring more and more players on your 2s and your 3s into that bandwidth of confidence and bring them up. And that's how you raise their level. And in teaching, we have there's teaching something for mastery, and there's covering it to say that you did it. And we covered that. Well, nobody understood it. I covered that. Then I gave them a test. Teachers are really bad with this, right? We covered it, and I gave them a test, and no one in the class got higher than a 30. Okay, you didn't teach it, though. You did cover it. I'll grant you that. But you didn't teach anything. And I've made that mistake, too. Everybody got the highest grade in the class was a 30. We didn't teach anything. Did you cover it? Sure, fine. Didn't work. So we got to go back and say, well, I tried, but it didn't work. So I got to do it a different way, because I can't have the highest grade in class be a 30 and say, did it. And that's what we've got to understand, is there's covering it and there's teaching it and installing it. And installing it means it's installed in their brains, not I put it out there and, hopefully they'll look at it. So right. You start to understand that your job is to get everybody to understand and to do, and if they don't do, to problem solve. And what you learn is that my job is just to look for problems. My job is to look for confused players. My job is to look for things that aren't getting done on the field, and then find solutions. And so that's, to me, that is where it all starts with developing a coach, is establishing very specifically what is your relationship with these players, and what is your job what is the job of a football coach?
Yes, I agree. You do have to, and we've talked about that. I've said my left and right limits, right? Like, you gotta let them know this is your job. How to do that job, I'm going to guide you through finding how you will do it yourself, because no one can really determine your coaching style.
Yeah. Well, once you get into specifics, yeah. But the very first thing is, like, let me establish what a coach is with you.
Right. Yeah.
Because everybody has a very poor, I'll just say, everybody has a very poor understanding of what a coach is when they start. Yes. When they start, a coach is the guy with the whistle yelling and screaming, and he's scheming up X's and O's. It's like, none of that matters, though. Right. None of that wins games.
Yeah. So I exactly what you said, right? You have to let people know, and that is overlooked a lot, especially when these guys are joining staffs that are not all new, right? If it's a head coach that's established, he has several guys on staff. New guy walks in, he's not getting what you just said. No one is taking him aside and going, this is what a coach is. Here's what you do each day, right? It's welcome to the party. This is you're assigned to this thing, whether it's special teams or tight ends or whatever.
And the funny thing is, that's the ones that should have it. Now, they don't. I know that. You're absolutely right. I'm not saying anybody here is wrong. I am saying you're wrong. Change it. But you're normal in that that's the ones that should have had time to develop that standard operating procedure of onboarding a new football coach.
Yep.
You know, Pete Carroll. Now, I don't know what Pete Carroll's actual onboarding procedure looks like, but Pete Carroll said the very first thing that he has a new hire do is establish their coaching philosophy. Now, remember, Pete Carroll's not hiring, some slappy.
Right.
He's hiring a guy who's already got a resume. He's not hiring the guy that you're hiring. But that's still the very first thing that he's doing. So, that's the big deal is we should have a new coach onboarding process.
Yeah.
And it's not easy for, say, me, not as easy for me now, but my first head coaching job was my first head coaching job and my last head coaching job probably. And I can't say never, but probably. And I failed at it. And then I developed a system so that I wouldn't fail at it again. Now I probably won't do it again. But that first year I wasn't prepared for it. But you should realize I failed at it and then develop a system which you can continually improve to do better. It's the same thing. I run a small, very, very small company. I hire very, very few people. And when I hire them, generally they work out or they don't. And we figure it out in a month or two and they're gone, or they stay for 6 years. And I don't know what to do when we have to hire somebody else. So now we've hired a little bit more and I have a hiring process and an onboarding process. But a lot of times what I know I'm doing now, I know enough about business. And so
Right.
head coaches, you need to know this. The next person that you hire, that is your opportunity to make your standard operating procedure. Document every single thing that you do, follow these ideas, and then that way next time you can just hand it to the next person and say, this is how we do it.
And reflect on it, fix it, go back,
Yes.
problem solve it. If it's something's broken, change that. It doesn't
Because
have to
that's
be
part of your problem solving, right?
right.
If you get out there and 3 weeks in, that dude gets fired because he showed up drunk to practice, then you need to make sure that the next time that you onboard a new coach, you mention, don't show up drunk to practice and emphasize that. Hopefully they know that, but if you assume that, you just lost a coach.
Yeah.
You probably wanted to lose that one anyway. But if 3 weeks in, they're running whatever drills that they want and they're not working, and then they're the receivers coach and they're over here yelling at the left guard, okay, you missed some things in your community. You didn't install the communications plan with them. So yeah, you go back and you review and you say, these are the things I got to emphasize next time.
So when it's not a brand new guy out of college, when I've hired someone who has 5 to 10 years in the industry, but so when we talk developing them, because we just said that people are bad at doing this, so we have to assume, much like with taking over any team, right? You assume no one knows anything.
Absolutely.
Do you go into it that base? And if so, once you've got that installed, now what?
I mean, the first thing I would do is I would say yes. People are coming from different places and different backgrounds and different ways of doing things. You as the head coach are going to know your administration and what's acceptable. You're going to know your parents and what's acceptable. You're going to know yourself and what's acceptable. It's very likely you hired somebody from another place who may have been doing it very, very differently. And you don't want to find out that it's not acceptable the way that they do things. Things like, do you allow language, F-bombs and that kind of stuff? You better establish that. Do you allow, what time do coaches need to be there? What time do you expect coaches to be there? What time do you expect them to leave? How does that schedule work? All of those things that are well outside of the realm. And those are the things we talked about in a previous episode about the adult conversations. You can knock out some adult conversations by saying your expectation is to be here 30 minutes before.
Right.
And then, having to get everybody's pissed off because he always shows up 5 minutes late. No, I always show up 5 minutes late. But that's an expectation that I established.
Hey, something I've dealt with and it comes from learning so much from you and other mentors that are coaches of mine, but other coaches that are mentors of mine. And that's just getting the hell out of there. When practice is over, I'm going home.
Yes.
And that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. They think that I like don't like them or I don't want to sit and just shoot the shit. But I got an hour, hour and a half. I've had an hour drive my whole career, it seems like. If I have an hour and a half to get home, my kids
Right.
miss me. They're asking me to quit coaching. There's no conversation we're about to have in the next 30 minutes to an hour that benefits me in any way versus going home and seeing my kids.
But that's you as a new hire establishing that, though. You know, that's I think most coaches. If you're a head coach, you should be throwing everyone out. They will follow you out. Nobody's going to stay when you walk out, right? Hey, I'm locking up. Walk out. But you're exactly right, and I would never use that as justification, by the way, because what will happen every single time. Hey, I'm leaving because I've got an hour drive. Somebody else is thinking, I got an hour drive too, and I hang around here all night. Well, that's you, and you're wrong. Here's my justification, exactly what you said. I have very limited time with my kids.
Yes.
We are not going to solve the world's problems sitting here. I am leaving.
That's right.
Most coaches, once that is established, will appreciate it. So what do we, where do we go next? The next thing is, hopefully we have established what your position group is, and or what your role is on the staff. And then we go into, I think that the very next thing that you need to establish is the expectations for that group. And that starts with, what are the non-negotiables? And I've been talking more and more about this, and I think it's absolutely critical. At every position, you need to establish the non-negotiable for that position. Pick one thing. Now, maybe you have one thing in the run and one game in the past or something like that, but for example, the quarterback may not have a great arm. Hopefully the starter does, but maybe the backup does. Maybe the third stringer does. Here are the things that are here's what's non-negotiable. The run game exchange and fake. So let me tell you something. If you're a running football team, primary run, some play action, quick game, at no cost should we have a fumble in the exchange, which means, coach, don't go setting up a bunch of drills for him to do footwork drills. Screw that. He better be handing off a football.
That's going to be a ringtone for me from now on.
Sounds good.
It does.
But that's what a lot of quarterbacks are doing, is they're running around bags with holding the ball up and skipping around cones, and then they fumble the freaking snap. Non-negotiable. So what does that quarterback need to do? Hand the ball off 100 times at every single run play that we have and carry out his fake. Why are you worried about whether or not he can throw a post corner route if he can't hand the ball off?
Right.
So I established with that coach. Now, these may not be your non-negotiables. This is mine. And so guess what, quarterback coach? I just hired you as a quarterback coach. You better go get the running backs coach and say, hi, I'm the new quarterback coach. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with you. Because apparently, from what I've been told, the big rule is that I have to get the ball to you and make sure it goes smoothly. And so you better not screw it up either.
Implied task.
Well, yeah, and the running back coach should be getting the same message. The rule is you better get the football from the quarterback on the right timing and the right footwork, right? All that sort of stuff. So established non-negotiables. Defensive linemen have to squeeze a down block. Linebackers have to follow a puller. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, listen, and I don't, nothing or think matters until this is done. And I'm going to establish that non-negotiable. And then we're going to talk about your drill work and how your group fits into the overall. We're going to talk about how your group fits into the overall scheme. What I like about umbrella run fits from the defensive standpoint is I'm going to teach you umbrella. If I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm going to teach you umbrella run fits. I've just hired you as a linebacker coach. You know nothing. You know 1/10 of what you think you know. And you know nothing as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to teach you where you fit. I'm going to teach you umbrella run fits. I'm going to teach you that your inside linebackers are spill defenders. I'm going to teach you that everything about what they do is about attacking the inside half of the gap, attacking the inside half of the ball carrier, and forcing the ball to bounce east to west out to that umbrella to where the force players are there to make the tackle. Then I'm going to tell you, all right, do you understand where your guys fit overall? Great. Let's shrink it back down. That was the 30,000 foot level. You don't need to know what everyone else is doing. You just need to know that your job is to usher that ball carrier to them or tackle him. And so then now you have an understanding of how your overall group fits into it. Then we're going to establish, again, those non-negotiables, and we're going to establish what are the things that your guys have to do, which means we're going to go over the ASCA for your position. Alignment, stance, key read, and assignment for the defense. Alignment, stance, communication, and assignment for the offense. We're going to establish that, exactly what it is in our base. Now, if your base has 19 different calls, then it's going to take a little longer. But we're going to establish what it is in our base, get you to understand exactly what that is, and say, okay, here's how this thing works. Here's where they align. Here's why they align there. Is your alignment non-negotiable, or is it negotiable? My alignment's non-negotiable, but non-negotiable in the intent. So take the overhang safeties, the force defenders in a 4-2-5 cover 3. Or 4-4, it doesn't matter what you call them. 4-2-5 cover 3, strong safety, weak safety, alignment, 5-by-5 with a tight end or single receiver removed, 5-by-1 in outside leverage of a slot receiver, and then it changes if they can show us that they can throw little slants and mini curls and stuff, and then it becomes 5-by-1 inside of that guy. That 5-by-5 is negotiable because ultimately the rule 5-by-5 gets us in the right area, but the rule is aligned to perform.
Right.
If he's getting hooked at 5-by-5, he shouldn't be playing, but it's non-negotiable that he keeps outside leverage. So he may be at 5-by-9. I don't know. He may be at 5 by the sideline, but nobody's getting outside of him. And then I'll slowly work as he learns to move him in and move him in and move him in until that. Now that shouldn't happen. 5-by-5 should be fine. But ultimately he's got to be able to do that job and make sure that the guy stays inside of him. So we establish, what's your alignment? How negotiable is it? What's negotiable? What needs to be done? By contrast, the defensive lineman's alignment is not really negotiable, right? This is where now it's a little bit as far as how tight and how heavy he is and how tilted he is, but it's pretty much not negotiable. Stance, closer you are to the ball, the less negotiable it is. We talk about the key reads on defense. We talk about the communication on offense and aiming points, and that's the critical stuff there. And then the assignment. So we established that with them. This is what must be done in base. And then I think you follow that up with what are the expectations? How are we going to grade you? How are we going to evaluate? Grade you is probably not the word. How are we going to evaluate your performance as a coach? That would be the next step.
I feel like there's so many places coaches can come from, like so many years of experience, or what system have they been in? And you get into that, like. So I love that you're immediately just going back to the fundamentals, installing the fundamentals at that new position, whatever they are.
Assuming
on top of it, assume nothing, or that they know nothing.
It will get you killed because it will not mesh. Look, if you hired me, I would expect, and one of the most frustrating things for me is, and I get this more than I like, just do whatever, because I'm the guy with the podcast and the internet company and everything like that. You just do whatever to get the job done. And then, okay, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. Do whatever. And then whatever doesn't match what your vision was.
Right.
And I would rather start with your specific thing and then move it towards my whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move it towards my whatever, because that's, I'm going to come in and say, look, I'm doing it this way. Could I change this? Could I adjust this? Could I, and we're going to move, but I would rather have specifics told to me and then operate from there. Some coaches can't handle that. And I think that's, you come from a military background. You can't just come in and do it your way. Yeah. I don't know. You would be able to tell me, but in an actual combat situation, there's a little bit more Like, you got to make some decisions that maybe aren't in the book, but like it starts with, here's the book.
Well, and what's funny about what you're stating is, I've hung out, got to hang out with some Rangers and some really high profile combat guys, but they'll even tell you like what makes us sexy is that we do the fundamentals
Right.
1,000 more times than you, so we're so much better at the fundamentals. It's not the cool guy gear, it's not the knowledge they have in their. They're going to go out and do the exact same thing that the lowest level dude does, but they just do it a lot smoother. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast kind of thing, right? Like when you're just that much better at the basics, it looks like you're super advanced, which weirdly enough goes right into football where everyone's like, I need to do the most complicated thing ever because my playbook needs to be 4 sheets because Andy Reid's is, right? Like, no, that's
Right.
do the fundamentals right and it looks sexy. So
The elite guy isn't Rambo. The
right,
elite, like that's a movie. That's a
right,
movie. Like that's not the real world. Like the elite guy, isn't the guy that's, it's not MacGyver.
yeah,
That's not the real world.
yeah,
It's yeah, exactly. And so that's why I think that the idea that I hired somebody who's, look, if I hired you because you're a great offensive coordinator, I'm giving you the offensive play calling duties. And then the offense revolves around what you want. And you tell all of those guys what to do. If I
yeah,
hired you because you're a great offensive line coach, I don't know what you don't know my system though. And so we've got to come back. And if you're a great offensive line coach, you should be able to learn from that and then make your greatness, work with it. Otherwise you're not great. Otherwise you're not that good. So yeah, that's a big thing.
yeah.
I think you definitely have to start at the absolute basics.
Next question. And so it's kind of a silly question, but once again, assuming nothing, why do we need to do this efficiently? And I will start here, and it's just because time. Like, when do you end up hiring new coaches? It's never in January,
Yeah.
right? This is when head coaches are getting hired, but they're still at their old school until April or May. Sometimes the school that I'm out of their contract 3 weeks early to go to spring ball, but not usually, right? So they're not getting there until June. And now they're like, oh, this staff is not pieced together correctly. I need to hire a couple guys. Now it's July or August. And guess what? The season's right around the corner. So, why do we need to do this so efficiently? Why do we need to be so good at it and have that SOP or have that onboarding package ready? And that's because you don't have time. I don't have time to install my system to you as a coach as thoroughly as I'm going to for my players. I don't have a 5-day install to sit down with you, right? I need to be able to say, here's the basics. We're going to build on top of this. We'll whiteboard it that morning, and then you're going to go out and install it at practice.
Right.
But I need you to know what my non-negotiables are so that if you do change this blitz angle or who's going first, whatever the thing is, right? It doesn't matter. But if you do change it, it still fits within my vision, my intent. But I am going to have to, because of time, give you some leeway on how to get that done as long as you meet my intent. And so I think that is why we need to be so efficient at this, is so you can bring a new guy on and make him part of the team. He doesn't have to wait until week 2 or 3 or 5 before he's really out there coaching, right? He needs to be able to hit the ground running. I mean, hopefully I still think 7-on-7 has its place, and this is one of them. I can get a coach coaching his players before we get into the getting ready for game, right? So hopefully you can get him in, help him learn the lingo that way, and now you have an extra tool to develop that coach and get him ready.
Yep. And speaking of time, we're almost out of it, so I will conclude with this one. The second part of why you need to do this is you can't afford not to, because you have to understand what's at stake. Your senior season, your week 1 game, your potential for bigger issues with a coach coming in who is frustrated because of what's going on and now becoming a internal problem, a problem within your staff, potential cancer on the staff, and that the toxic coaching that we've talked about. You can't afford. And the other thing is exactly what you said. We're going to be hiring late. I cannot afford to have you fail Every other job, somebody you hire can be a failure, and it's fine because I'll fire you and I'll hire somebody else in a week. We make our hires. I was on a staff that wasn't a bad guy. I don't think it was a bad hire. It just didn't work out. I was on a staff where one of the coaches that was hired quit 4 weeks into the season. Well, guess what? His position group now became the responsibility of someone else or of a group of someone else's. He wasn't prepared. He wasn't ready. He didn't know what all was involved. It wasn't all clear, I guess. I don't know the exact situation, but everything that has to be done to avoid this situation, because a guy gets frustrated and 4 weeks in, he leaves the staff. You cannot replace him. It is not an option. You're just going to have to cover it up, and you're down a man. So have them ready and know what's happening as early as possible. At least if he had quit in July, we all would have prepared. But when you quit in September, we're all in the middle of things, right? So you can't afford it.
Welcome to coordinating the small school way.
Yes.
Where you do everything.
Figure it out.
Awesome, man. Well, let's pay the bills and get out of here so you can make your time hack. Do you want to pay them here, sir?
Absolutely. JDFP Premium Coaching System. Check it out at joedanielfootball.com. We've got 425, 43, 33 stack, 4-3 pistol power offense system, all there, all built on the Coach Simple philosophy. If you are looking for a way to fix your kids that are playing too slow, too soft, too sloppy, too scared, they're too small, they have a low football IQ. If any of those things sound like your football team, come to us so that we can tell you why none of that matters and then fix it. And that's what we do at JDFP Premium Coaching Systems. Go to just go to joedanielfootball.com. You'll find what you need there. Check it out. And then, we've got a lot happening with athletic speed and movement. Daniel has by the time this is out, Daniel knows all of it, but we'll be doing a lot more with athletic speed and movement, including monthly master classes with Dale, going deep dives into new topics. I'll close with we'll also have Q&As with Dale. We'll also have Dale sharing in multiple different ways. I'll share this as the last thing because I today did the Ron Roberts video that Daniel filmed with Ron Roberts, who's the defensive coordinator at Auburn currently. But Ron Roberts before that, 11 years, 6 conference championships between Delta State and Southeastern Louisiana at the FBS or the Division II level, went all the way to a championship game, and then at the FCS level. And there's a video clip that I pulled out of there, and he talks specifically about he used Dale for that entire 11-year run. Used all of Dale's stuff. Can't convince the big D1 speed coaches to do it, or the big ones, D1 strength coaches to do it because how could Dale possibly know what he's doing? But and he's not mad about that. I understand it too. But he talks about all that, and he says, all of this stuff, all these guys are going, not his speed coach. I'm not going to throw his strength coaches under the bus, but he talks about football coaches are going to these track guys and track stuff, and that's not football. What Dale teaches you is football, and it applies directly to all of your stuff, all of your positions, all of your drills. I had a guy ask me today, are there drills for position specific? I said, no, because you don't need those. You just apply the principles that Dale teaches to the drills you have now, and it works. athleticspeedandmovement.com. If your kids are too slow or not explosive enough, you need athleticspeedandmovement.com. Check it out.
Perfect. Social media, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Chambo OK, Twitter X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Joe?
At Football Info on Twitter. You can get me on Instagram at Joe Daniel Football, and our Twitch is having some weird things. Hopefully it's fixed by now, but at Joe Daniel Football on Twitch. I'm sorry, at Joe Daniel Football on TikTok. It's doing some weird stuff, but it's like weird. But hopefully we got it fixed by now. But Instagram is the that's the one that's going. At Joe Daniel Football, and then on the YouTubes you can watch these. If you like to watch your podcast, you can get it on the YouTubes. Go to joedanielfootball.com/YouTube to check that out.
Perfect. The podcast is at the FBCP on Twitter/X. If it's your first time listening to Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you listen to things you listen to.
Oh, sorry, we're not on SoundCloud anymore. Sorry, guys. All 12 of you that are listening on there, it's not on SoundCloud anymore.
I'll have to remove that from my brain. I've been
I know.
saying it so long. I've been listening for a while. Please leave a review. Not on SoundCloud, apparently. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.